Yeah, well, that was part of my motto. And when I got on the fire department, I was kind of a hothead. Everything had to happen yesterday. And when you're around like 20-year military veterans, Irish background,
Hmm.
they tell you, kid, it's burning when we get there. It's going to be burning until we put it out. Keep the point of your axe down and stay on my right shoulder, and you'll be fine.
Mm.
So if you're not shot, stabbed, or on fire, for me, it's not an emergency. It might be urgent, it might be important, but it's not an emergency. So if you can carry that mindset around
Like the
with you, you
perspective. Yeah.
don't get frazzled very much when things
Yep.
happen.
Hmm.
Especially,
Real relationships, real leaders, real stories. Welcome to the Authenticity Project. National.
Well, hello, friends. Welcome to the Authenticity Project. I'm Dawn Landry. As you know, business development is part art, part science, and all about relationships. And my guest here today is a longtime relationship, a longtime friend of mine who's actually become like family. He and his family are our family in Houston now also. It is great. It is great for you to be on the Authenticity Project with me, Mark. Welcome. Let's talk a little bit about you. Can you tell our guests a little bit, or tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
absolutely, and Don, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Looking forward to our conversation. I've been involved in economic development since 1997. I started when I was 12 years old. And so I've done it in Indiana, Michigan, Texas. I've ran regional economic development corporations in different states. I've worked for private sector companies like Ernst& Young and KSM in site selection. And so I've been on all four sides of the table in terms of economic development. And part of that is relationships is the most important aspect of being able to do economic development successfully. So that's been my passion for the past 25, 30 years. And so looking forward to kind of talking about this from a relationship standpoint and hopefully making a connection with your audience and giving them value as well.
Absolutely. So for those on the who don't know what economic development is, you say economic, I say economic, potato, potato, right? So what is it and how does it relate? How is it different than business development?
Well, they're very similar if you look at it from a big picture perspective. When you're doing business development, you have a product, and that could be a service, it could be a physical product that you're trying to establish relationships with an audience that needs your particular product. Well, economic development is a product in and of itself. It's really about quality of life and how we increase quality of life. And those pillars within that quality of life are job creation, tax-based creation, and improving quality of life. So relationship building in that domain is really, really important, especially when you're looking at potentially millions or billions of dollars of investment. So knowing individuals, having relationships with individuals, meaningful relationships with individuals is really, really important. And I think that mirrors what business development aspects you promote within your audience.
Absolutely. What is the most fun project you ever landed?
Oh, wow. Um, Well, I'd say there's been a few. I worked in Michigan for 6 years and indirectly ran Whirlpool Corporation's community and economic development organization. And so within the city that was adjacent to Whirlpool's global headquarters was a community that was last out of income levels in the state of Michigan. There are 600, over 600 different townships, municipalities, boroughs, counties in Michigan, and it was dead last per capita income. And so Whirlpool made a decision that they wanted to reinvest in this community since it was so close to them,
Mhm.
and they spent tens of millions of dollars reinvesting in this adjacent community. And we ended up doing $100 million of infrastructure improvement, building a Jack Nicklaus signature golf course, establishing a marina hotel, building two new subdivisions, relocating a part of Whirlpool's global headquarters back into this community. And that was a 6 year journey for me. And so that's probably one of the most exciting projects I got to work on. I got to work directly with Jack Nicklaus in the design of the course. I didn't do anything. He just told us what he was going to do in the development. But I'd say that's probably my most exciting project, and it was a long-term project, which most economic development people, the tail in business development can be 6 months to 18 months. In economic development, it literally can be 5, 10, or 15 years. So those elements in terms of development mirror one another, but they just tend to be a little bit longer in terms of economic development.
Well, and when you have those kind of long-term, opportunities, if you call it that, there are twists and turns along the way from a crisis management standpoint. Also, that's one of the things that I wanted us to kind of hit on today. Also, the level of or the importance of good relationships when you need them most.
Oh, absolutely. I had back to the Michigan example, and I'll give you a couple. I'll give you one
Yeah.
here in Houston and one in Michigan. But I had the county commissioner, equivalent to the county judge in Texas, tell me that, Mark, if this has anything to do with us having a relationship or contractual agreement with this community and that community, we want no fiscal part of it. None. And so this ended up being a $500 million project. And so
Yeah.
at the early stages, the county commissioner told me directly, we don't want anything to do with this project. And so that took me the better part of 18 months to show him both providing information and data and fiscal agency in terms of why it would be a good thing for not only the county, but for all of the surrounding cities. So that relationship over those 18 months culminated in them not only being involved with the project, but being the driver of essentially an annexation and a tax-based sharing agreement that 18 months earlier they told me they would not be involved in. The secondary piece is Hurricane Harvey. When Harvey hit, I was the Chief Economic Development Officer for Partnership Lake Houston, which is the northeast side of Houston. And we got hit particularly hard during Hurricane Harvey. We lost several businesses, homes are washed away down the San Jacinto River. And so it was really, really desperate out here. And it was because of all the relationships that we had built over the prior 2 years with county commissioners, with state congressmen, with or state representatives and U.S. congressmen that we were able to really bring our community together, give away $1.2 million to businesses and communities, and really help people recover faster. And it was all based on relationships that were built over the preceding years and not phone calls from an emergency perspective to people we didn't know.
Mhm.
So it's really important to have a relationship where you're not going in asking for anything. You are actually there to serve. And I wear a bracelet that says serve. And
Mm.
so my motto and my mindset is, how do I give back before I ask for anything? And if you do that over a sustained 20 or 25 years, it's amazing the amount of times you can pick up the phone and ask for things and actually get them within a 24 or 48-hour period.
Yeah. Who told you, or what was that in you that gave you that philosophy, Mark?
I would say my mom, she raised
Mhm.
6 kids essentially by herself.
Mm.
And the second pod of us, the last three, she would leave us work lists on the weekend that were 9 miles deep. And so you have to rely on other people. You have to have that integrity and you have to be able to keep your word. And my mom worked multiple jobs, took care of us, made sure we were fed, clothed, and sheltered. And so she's probably the linchpin in terms of my mindset and attitude in terms of serving others because that's what she did for her whole life.
What are you doing now?
I actually have a couple of consulting firms. I do different real estate transactions, some real estate tax advisory work, and then I also do some sidebar consulting where I've had the pleasure of working with you on a couple of projects in terms of both strategic planning, business development, and economic development. So that keeps me busy right now. I took a buyout a few years ago from the company in Indianapolis that I used to work for, but I wasn't quite ready to retire yet. So I still kind of keep my powder dry doing other stuff in terms of work.
A failed retirement.
Exactly. That's what my wife says. I think still trying to push me out of the house though.
That's awesome. Like, what is like like if you were to give like one piece, you have boys, and so you have young men, shall I say, because they're
Yeah.
bigger than me. Um, what is the one piece of advice that you give them about business relationships and how to cultivate it?
Well, I think the first piece of it is making sure that their self-talk is positive.
Hmm.
And I think that drives everything. Even when things look bleak on the outside, your self-talk, your internal clock has to be positive. So before you go speak to anyone in terms of business development, you have to have the right mindset. So my advice to them has always been talk to yourself positively before you go out the door to build any relationships. And that's helped my older son, Luke, which you know really well. He did an internship last year for a real estate developer, helped them build out their AI strategy in terms of implementation and process. And so his fear was not being able to communicate with quote unquote professionals. But again, I just echoed that you have to have that positive voice inside your head so you can clearly articulate what you want to say to others, and then just be genuine and be a decent human being. If you do those three things, the business relationship aspect of it kind of falls into place.
I wish I had somebody to tell me that when I was in my 20s.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I didn't learn that till like 40, late 40s-ish or whatever. So yeah, I try to tell them that my job is to accelerate their learning curve. What it took me 35 years to start figuring out, I want them to get that before they're 30. So then their trajectory is even further than it is right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's been part of the secret sauce? Because when I think of you, I think of not only relationships here in Texas, but really you have relationships that you've cultivated and then continued to stay in touch with in Indiana, where you're from, and Michigan, and like just all across the United States. Like what has been like what has been your secret sauce in terms of not only cultivating, but actually staying in touch and being intentional with it?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things to that. And I always look to help people first before I'm asking for anything. And the oddity is, the KSM is the largest independent accounting firm in Indiana, and the current CEO and the CEO of one of the subsidiaries, one of them was a dotted line report to me, and then when I worked for the city of Indianapolis, and the other one was an office mate at Ernst and Young back in the late '90s and early 2000s. And as their career, and they were both younger than me, and their careers progressed, I essentially helped them. There were some things I did I didn't even remember doing. They had to tell me
Mhm.
in terms of helping them either with referrals or job applications or resume building, or whether it was a good idea to go to this company. And if you did this, how would you build out this practice? And so 20 years later, they both end up in the same place as CEOs of the parent and one of the subsidiaries. And they lost their president of one of the subsidiaries. And I ended up on both of their short lists for that position. This is 20 years later. So they remember the help that I gave them, even though I didn't remember all of it.
Mhm.
And so I try to do that with everyone I meet. So everyone I come into contact with, I try to be the best version of me that I can be and see and understand what their pain points are and help them. And eventually it's karma. The good things come back down the road. So the secret sauce is just being willing to be helpful, and it's genuine, and then all those things just come back to you. And that's been my career for the past 30 years.
Yeah. You have an interesting perspective also, like you talked about in your introduction. You've sat on various sides of the table in terms
Mhm.
of seeing different perspectives. When you've been on the side of the table where people have been trying to sell to you, where is it that they always get it wrong?
Well, I can read through BS pretty quickly,
Hmm.
and it only takes me about a half hour, 45 minutes to understand whether they're coming from a legitimate place
Hmm.
or if they're really coming some place that's not authentic, right? And so that's the trigger for me. I just ask questions on the left side, looking for an answer on the right side, and people will answer me on the left side, not realizing they're giving me an answer for the right side. And that allows me to understand whether this is a legitimate project and whether they really need incentives or whether they're just fishing, trying to figure out what they can get, or whether we're being used as a straw man. And so that's really important in economic development to understand whether the company is truly looking at your community or whether they're just using you as a prop to engage and enhance incentives in another community. So and I spent over 5 years as a firefighter. So my BS detector is pretty high. And so that I use that on a daily in terms of engaging both selling and receiving. And that's why I try to be as genuine as I can when I'm engaging with people, because they can smell that. If they've got a good mindset, they can smell it a mile away. So I try to be, again, as honest and authentic as I can in terms of like having relationships with folks.
I was wondering if the firefighter was going to come out. So
Yeah,
it's a
he's
fun,
still there.
yeah. But it comes out in crisis management also, right? Because when I think of you, I just think like a cool head under pressure.
Yeah, well, that was part of my motto. And when I got on the fire department, I was kind of a hothead. Everything had to happen yesterday. And when you're around like 20-year military veterans, Irish background,
Hmm.
they tell you, kid, it's burning when we get there. It's going to be burning until we put it out. Keep the point of your axe down and stay on my right shoulder, and you'll be fine.
Mm.
So if you're not shot, stabbed, or on fire, for me, it's not an emergency. It might be urgent, it might be important, but it's not an emergency. So if you can carry that mindset around
The
with you, you
perspective, yeah.
don't get frazzled very much when things happen,
Hmm.
especially like something like Hurricane Harvey, because we were decimated after Harvey. And we just had a mindset from an organizational perspective that keep our calm. And we ended up working with State of Texas, Dow Foundation. We helped with getting federal dollars to our area. We were a significant impact in terms of the $2.5 million bond referendum that was passed after Harvey. So again, we just tried to keep our eyes open and level set and be as calm as we could under the circumstances. And that helped us immensely in that process.
Hmm. Well, and you're dealing with lots of government officials also.
We dealt with our service area encompasses three of the four county commissioners and plus the judge. And so we had dealings with all three of our county commissioners. Matter of fact, one of them, he's gone now, but precinct two, they were instrumental in helping the ball get rolling in terms of our engagement from a disaster recovery perspective. And then the momentum just kept going from there.
Yeah. Yeah. That encompasses a whole lot in terms of like when you're dealing with, I don't want to say regular business people, but regular business people versus, elected officials, it's radically different in the way that like how you handle, like in the instance that you were talking about in Michigan, they didn't have to come to the table. In fact,
No.
they dug their heels in and they said, we're not coming to the table. So the fact that you could get them to come and play in the sandbox is pretty amazing.
Yeah, and that's just finding the least common denominator.
Hmm.
My argument was, well, Bill, if you're not willing to do this, help me figure out from your lens how to do it where you're comfortable.
Mm.
And so the county commissioner essentially sent his lawyer to our internal law meetings where we had three sets of attorneys, one representing the real estate development, one representing Whirlpool and one representing the county. And it took us the better part of a year and a half to figure out what Michigan statutory vehicle we could use for the financing of the infrastructure. Well, over the course of those 18 months, the county commissioner saw that I wasn't trying to do anything nefarious. He saw that I was really trying to redevelop the community. And then
Mhm.
that's when the wall started coming down, and they eventually came to the realization that what I proposed originally was what was going to work. And so full circle, it took 18 months, but we ended up with a Jack Nicklaus golf course, a marina hotel, two new subdivisions, $100 million of infrastructure, and the relocation of Whirlpool's headquarters. So 18 months was a small price to pay for that level of investment.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a signature project, right?
it is. And I mean, the sad thing is I haven't been back to Michigan in 12 years, so I've never been able to actually golf on the full course. I've been able to drive by it, but I've not been on it. But it's a beautiful golf course, and
Mm.
Jack Nicklaus was an amazing individual to work with. But yeah, it was a signature project and one of passion. The CEO of Whirlpool at the time was one of my mentors and one of the greatest mentors I had, and he was of that same kind of cloth in terms of if you're not shot, stabbed, or on fire, it's not an emergency.
Mm.
We will figure this out because we're trying to do it for the right reasons.
Yeah. What a,
Yeah.
yeah. And what a quote too. I haven't heard you say that quote.
Yeah, that's in my
That
head
is a
most of
nice philosophy.
yeah, and I share that with most of the people that I've done like career development with or
Mhm.
professional development with, they
Mhm.
they think that a deadline is the end of the world.
Mhm.
But when you're in crisis situations, you understand that, well, this is really important to a lot of people, but it's not an emergency. So
Mhm.
as long as you take all of your steps, and working for accounting firms, deadlines are critically important. So the 15th of April, October, September, those are all critical days. But if the client hasn't given you the information, if the client is not responding to your emails, if the client is not answering your phone calls, there's not much more you can do. And so we'll file, and then they'll have to deal with the consequences after that. And then the next year, they make sure they get everything submitted. But there's nothing, if we do our job and there's nothing left on the table, then we have to let go of all the anxiety that we carry around, because at the end of the day, you're still going to be breathing tomorrow when you get up.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you're talking about Ernst and Young, which is what
Yep.
brought you to Texas, you and your family to Texas.
It
And that's
is.
when
It
you
is.
and I met. What
Yeah,
that
exactly. Exactly. And you're the same
16?
way. I mean, that's how we ended up being adopted family, right? So
Yep.
you've never
Mhm.
met a stranger. And so within 12 months of me being here, we're fast buddies.
Yeah.
So and that was almost 19 years ago.
I know.
So
It's so hard to believe. And then our
I
families were too. We celebrate Thanksgiving
absolutely
together. And yeah, it's just, yeah, it's like you can't plan for that. That's when business relationships actually work really well, when they turn into personal friendships. So
Well, and that's where the whole part of your emphasis on business development and relationships or whatever, when you called me and asked me to do this, how long did it take me to say, heck yes,
yes,
right? And so that's relationship driven. I knew you were doing it for the betterment for another group of people. So it's easy to say yes to people
yes.
like you, right? Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I can continue to talk to you forever, and I'm going to bring you back, and we'll talk about other related topics. But as we close, one question that I always ask is: business development is part art, part science. Which one do you gravitate to the most, and how?
Yeah, it's my background is more technical. I've
Hmm.
done like electrical and went to Purdue for a while. And so my background is a blend of kind of science and process, but I think it's the art. And I think it's not so much art is if you're just a decent human being trying to do better for others, that business development aspect is just natural. And so I think it's for the folks that aren't having that focus of like, how do I help others first before I help myself?
Yeah,
That's what drives business development. And people see that. And so that I think it's the art side of it, of just being a genuine, giving, decent human being, and that just the sales kind of come to you
exactly.
organically. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate you being on the Authenticity Project, and I look forward. We're going to see you soon, right?
Oh, absolutely. You call and I'll be there.
Okay, awesome. All right. Thank you for watching the
All right, take
Authenticity
care.
Project. All right. You take good
All right.
care. Bye.
And you too. Bye-bye.
The Authenticity Project. Real leaders, real relationships, real stories. Join us for the next BD conversation coming soon.